Reality is supposed to be constant, solid, unchanging, reliable. But every so often, something happens that cracks that illusion wide open. A street that loops endlessly. A stranger who looks exactly like you, standing where you shouldn't be. A place that exists one moment and vanishes the next. These moments aren't just strange. They feel wrong, like the universe skipped a frame and you happen to notice. Tonight, we'll step into 3 chilling encounters where people swear they experienced a glitch in the Matrix. Moments that can't be explained and shouldn't exist, but did. Just remember, if it could happen to them, it could happen to you. It was late 2018, and I was on the closing shift at a mid-sized hotel tucked just off the interstate. Business was slow that night. The lobby was empty except for the quiet murmur of the TV behind the front desk. Around 1:30 a.m., I grabbed my key ring and clipboard to do my routine hallway check on the 5th floor. The elevators in our building were notoriously sluggish. You could press the button and wait a full 2 minutes before hearing that tired ding. I didn't feel like standing there, so I headed for the stairwell instead. The stairs were always different at night. Even though the hotel was full of life in the daytime, the stairwell felt cut off, like stepping into a different building entirely. My footsteps echoed against the concrete walls, mixing with the faint mechanical hum of the building's ventilation system. There was no draft, no movement, just that low, steady hum that made your ears ring after a while. When I pushed open the door to the 5th floor landing, my hand froze on the handle. Someone was standing there, and it was me. They wore the same maroon hotel polo, the same black slacks. The same bulky key ring dangled from the same belt loop. My hair, my exact hairstyle, was pulled back in the same messy knot I'd thrown it into earlier that night. The overhead light caught their face perfectly, and there was no mistaking it. It was my face. They stood just a few feet in front of me, perfectly still, shoulders squared toward me. No blinking, no twitch, no expression. My brain scrambled for a rational answer. A prank, maybe? A mirror? A coworker wearing a wig? But there were no mirrors in the stairwell, and no one else had my build or uniform. And there was something about the eyes. They weren't right. They had a dull, glassy look, like mannequin eyes that never catch the light. Can I help you? My own voice cracked when I said it. The other me tilted their head slightly to the side, slow and deliberate, like they were curious about something. Then, without a word, without breaking eye contact, they turned and began walking up the stairs. I say walking, but it was too quiet. Their shoes made no sound on the concrete. Adrenaline kicked in, and I followed. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. They were only a few steps ahead, but every time I rounded a corner, I saw them just disappearing around the next flight. And then, suddenly, there were no more stairs. The stairwell ended at the roof access door, a heavy gray slab of steel with a massive padlock I'd seen 100 times. The lock was still in place, untouched. No other exit, no trace of anyone. I stood there for a long time, just listening. Nothing but the distant hum of the ventilation. When I finally went back down to the security office, my hands were still shaking. I pulled up the hallway camera for the 5th floor, expecting maybe something. Proof. At 1:32 a.m., the footage showed me pushing open the stairwell door and stepping inside. Less than a minute later, the camera caught me stepping back out into the hallway. Only, I never came back out. That was the last night I ever took the stairs in that building. In 2015, I was driving home from a night class through a stretch of rural Texas highway I'd taken dozens of times before. It was late, close to 11 p.m., and the road felt endless, a narrow ribbon of asphalt cutting through pitch-black farmland. My high beams illuminated just enough to see the center lines, the skeletal outlines of fence posts, and the occasional reflective glint of a road sign whipping past. The night was dead quiet, except for the low hum of my engine and the faint whir of my tires against the cracked pavement. No other cars, no houses, no lights, just darkness pressing in on all sides. That's when I passed a green mile marker, 143. A few seconds later, the dim silhouette of a small gas station appeared ahead on the right. It looked abandoned. No lights in the windows, pumps covered in grime, the awning sagging slightly. A single street lamp buzzed faintly, its bulb flickering in an irregular pattern. I didn't think much of it and kept driving. But maybe 3 or 4 minutes later, something made my stomach tighten. I saw it again. Mile marker 143. Same green numbers, same angle, same chipped paint on the post. And then, the same gas station, same flicker in the street lamp, same warped sign leaning against the wall. For a moment, I told myself it was just déjà vu. I was tired. Maybe my mind was playing tricks. I turned up the radio, found something upbeat, and tried to shake it off. 5 minutes later, my headlights swept across another green sign. Mile marker 143. Same gas station. Only this time, it was like the world was exactly repeating itself. Every detail identical. The same crack in the asphalt shoulder. The same dead weeds curling against the curb. The same 3 flickers in the street lamp before it went dark again. My skin prickled. This wasn't déjà vu. It was a loop. I eased off the gas, glancing at my phone. My GPS map was still open, but the little blue dot showing my location wasn't moving. It sat there, frozen in place, no matter how far I drove. My speedometer read 45 miles per hour, but according to my phone, I was going nowhere. Something in my chest tightened. I pulled over onto the shoulder, my hazard lights flashing weakly against the black road. I grabbed my phone and dialed my roommate, more for comfort than help. She picked up on the second ring, but before I could even explain, my rearview mirror caught movement. Headlights. They appeared out of nowhere, just 2 bright orbs growing larger at an alarming speed. A black sedan, completely clean, no front license plate. It slowed as it approached, then pulled into the other lane to pass. The moment it drew even with me, something strange happened. My GPS blinked, froze for a split second, and then refreshed. The blue dot jumped forward. I was suddenly at mile marker 149, 4 miles ahead of where I should have been. The gas station was gone. I kept driving that night, gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned white, refusing to look in my mirrors. When I got home, I convinced myself I'd misread something, that my brain had filled in gaps. But I've driven that road hundreds of times since. I've searched for that mile marker, for that gas station. They aren't there. They've never been there. And now, every time I pass that stretch, I can't shake the feeling that if I slowed down, even for a second, I might end up back at mile marker 143, still driving in circles, waiting for that black sedan to find me again. Back in 2021, I lived alone in a small one-bedroom on the 4th floor of an aging apartment building. It wasn't fancy. Thin walls, a leaky faucet that whined like a tea kettle, and a constant faint hum from the vending machine near the elevator. But it was home. One rainy Tuesday evening after work, I trudged into the lobby, shaking water from my hair. My phone buzzed, and I started scrolling through messages as I stepped into the elevator. The fluorescent light inside hummed faintly overhead, flickering every so often in a way I had long since stopped noticing. The ride up was routine, slow, with that slight sway the old elevator always had, until the bell chimed and the doors slid open. I stepped out without looking up from my phone and froze mid-step. This wasn't my hallway. The layout was identical. Same stretch of corridor, same doors on either side. But the details were wrong. The carpet under my feet wasn't the familiar worn gray. It was a faded mustard yellow, flattened in the center, like it had been walked on for decades. The walls were covered in old floral wallpaper, pale roses winding up in repeating patterns, the paper itself peeling in long, curling strips at the seams. And the silence was suffocating. Normally, I could hear the muffled murmur of TVs from my neighbors' apartments, the occasional thump of footsteps above me, or the faint metallic clink of someone in 4C washing dishes. But here, there was nothing. No hum of the vending machine, no plumbing noise, just stillness. My skin prickled as I walked to where my apartment should have been, 4B. But the brass numbers I expected were gone. In their place, crudely hand-painted digits in black, slightly crooked. My key slid into the lock and didn't fit. A chill rippled through me, but my brain still tried to make sense of it. Maybe I got off on the wrong floor. Maybe they were doing renovations. I turned to go back to the elevator, and that's when I saw her. At the far end of the hallway, maybe 20 feet away, a woman stood perfectly still. She wore a long brown coat buttoned to the collar and clutched a paper grocery bag against her chest. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, and though her face was angled slightly away from me, I could feel, in that way you just know, that she was aware of me. Hey, I called out, trying to sound casual. Sorry, is this the 4th floor? No response. She didn't even twitch. And then, slowly, So slowly I almost didn't notice at first. She began to smile. Not a friendly smile, not a nervous one. Just a wide, deliberate curve of the lips that kept stretching until it felt wrong. My heart slammed in my chest. I backed away without taking my eyes off her, fumbling for the elevator button. The doors slid shut with an agonizing slowness, cutting her off from view just as her head tilted, like a curious dog. When they opened again, I was staring at my hallway. Gray carpet, brass numbers, faint TV chatter drifting from 4C. Everything normal. Except, as I passed my neighbor's door on the way to mine, something caught my eye. Just under the threshold, barely visible in the dim light, was a narrow strip of carpet that didn't match the rest. Mustard yellow, and it was frayed at the edges, as if it had been there much longer than anyone in the building realized.